everyone, it's Allison here again with New Little Life. In my last video, I showed you everything that came in my do-it-yourself breast milk jewelry kit, and if you missed that video, I will put a link up top here for you. We also talked about where to get the kit, why you might want to do it at home instead of sending it off for somebody else to do, and lots of good stuff, so make sure you check out that video. The next step in this process is preserving your breast milk into a form that you can work with it. So we're going to make it into this powder, which will last forever. You can make it into any kind of jewelry you want. Let's jump right in. So before you start the process of making the jewelry with your breast milk, you need to preserve the breast milk so that it's in a workable form to make the jewelry. Everything you need comes in the kit that you get. I got this kit on Etsy from Maid in the Woods, and I've been super impressed with it so far. There's going to be a ton of links down below in the description as well, so you can get yours. But everything you need is in here. You've got a syringe, you've got the Breastmilk Preservation powder, a spatula, I've got some parchment paper out, I've got some old breast milk here that I'm gonna use, a double boiler. I'll show you how to do it with a pan if you don't have a double boiler like I don't. And then your instructions, so everything you need to get started. You only need about 5 milliliters of breast milk, and a little syringe comes in the kit. So you only need to fill up the syringe. You don't need a lot. I'm using some old breast milk that I just pulled out of the freezer. I weaned my little guy a couple months ago. So if you're in the same boat as me, you already weaned and you're like, oh, I need some breast milk, you can go and check out my other video where I actually put a pump on. I was demonstrating the pump, but even at 3 months post weaning, I was able to get a little breast milk. So again, I'll put that video up top for you if you want to check it out. If you have already weaned, but you still want to do this, but you don't need very much, only about 5 milliliters. I unfroze this, I thawed it in the fridge. I left it out to sit in the counter so it's room temperature. And then I just mixed it back together to get all of the fat and content in that milk. You don't have to worry about it going bad because you're not going to feed this to your baby. So you can also use expired milk, milk that's been out. You can pump past and see what you can get. Any kind of milk you have, it doesn't matter if it's expired, rotten, whatever, you're going to preserve it right now. So the instructions say to use a double boiler, which would be the best thing to use in my opinion, but I don't have a double boiler. So what I'm going to use is just 2 stainless steel pans. I've got water in the bottom. It is touching the bottom of the second pan, but just barely. You don't want it overflowing. You don't want to get water in the breast milk with the preservation powder, so don't fill it clear up with water. You don't want to use something like a measuring cup just sitting in boiling water because you're going to get water on the inside and it's just not. Find 2 pans like this. The point of a double boiler is so that you're not cooking the thing that you're trying to heat, but you can get it really hot. So if you just are like, I'll just stick it on the stove, you're going to cook the breast milk and the powder and it's not going to turn out right. You need to do it this way or with a double boiler. So while that water is heating up, I'm going to go ahead and draw up my breast milk. Wow, that is not very much breast milk, which is great. You don't need a lot to do this. This will make quite a bit of powder, so you'll have a lot of powder to make a lot of jewelry if you want. So feel free to buy extra molds or extra little things to make. You can make earrings, necklaces, rings, beads, pendants, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that breast milk in the top pan here. It says to heat it up. The kit came with a little spatula that I think I'm gonna use to kind of do this and then spread it out on the paper after. I'm gonna bring you in closer so you can see what's happening in this pan. Okay, so that water isn't boiling underneath, but it's really hot and the breast milk is hot as well. So everything is really clearly marked in the kit that you get. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the Breastmilk Preservation powder to this milk. It says that it's gonna form a paste, but we will see. So it's already pre-measured. This entire bag goes in with the 5 milliliters of breast milk. Let's see what it does. Yeah, that's kind of thickening right up. It can look like a thick paste like that, or it can still be a little watery. Either way is fine. Now it says to spread it really thin out on this paper. And it doesn't really matter how thin it is. The thinner it is, the faster it will dry. You're gonna crumble this all up into a really fine powder, so it doesn't really matter if it's pretty. I'm gonna scrape out any extra I can from there and just put it on here too. It doesn't really matter because this is all getting ground into powder later anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna let this dry and I'll come back to you in a couple days when it's all dry and ready to go. Okay, so it's been 3 days, but at the 24-hour mark, this was ready to go. But life with kids, you know, so you can actually let it sit for a few days. It was just on top of my fridge, so I wasn't that worried about it. But it's ready to go. It's all dried up and ready to be ground down into a powder. Here's a close-up picture of what it looks like all dried out. And now what we're going to do is to kind of make it into a fine powder so that we can put it in our jewelry and it's preserved forever that way. I've got a little glass container that I'm gonna store it in. You could also put it in a Ziploc baggie. You don't have to be fancy. I'm just gonna use a spoon to kind of grind it into a powder, so we'll see if that works. The instructions said you could, so I'm interested to try it out. This is kind of a nice time to really think about what you're doing, you know, this breast milk sustained life for however long you breastfed your baby. And so I'm gonna put on some of my relaxing music. My favorite playlist is a calming birth playlist that I made for my birth and my client's birth. So I'm gonna put that on because it's really soothing and relaxing. I'm gonna take a minute just to think about all the times that we breastfed and kind of find some closure at the end of this process. Just take a minute for myself, so I'll put on some music for you too. Okay, so that's about 3 minutes worth of work, not very long at all. I talked with the shop owner of Maid in the Woods, and she said that you can ground it down into a really fine powder. Some of this I can tell at the bottom is really fine. But these little chunks will sink down to the bottom of your jewelry and make some really pretty more chunky pieces down. You can see a little bit better in the jewelry. So I'm gonna do this for a few more minutes though and get it into more of a powder. But don't stress too much about some chunks being in there because they actually can add a little cool effect to your jewelry. Okay. That's about 10 minutes worth of work right there. That's really cool. I am glad I did it in this little cake pan because it did kind of jump a little bit as I was turning it into powder, so I would recommend something like that. So you can see I did kind of catch a little bit. And as breastfeeding moms, we never waste a single drop of breast milk, right? So we're gonna get all those little. That's what I ended up with. This will actually make quite a bit of jewelry. And that is all perfectly preserved breast milk. That will last a very long time. So you can just keep that in a dry container and make a lot of jewelry with it. So now that your breast milk is all preserved into a powder form, the next step in this process is to cast the actual jewelry. This is the fun part. So go ahead and click on this video right here, and you can see the next step into making your breast milk jewelry at home. I'll see you over there.